Hi there, Super Duty owners. Today in your 2015 Ford F350 Super Duty, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install the third brake light backup camera system. This system's great for you individuals out there who have gooseneck or fifth wheel trailers particularly. You can see we got our fifth wheel here, and now we've got a way to easily see it when we back up.
And this is what our camera assembly looks like when it's installed. It's a bezel that mounts behind your factory third brake light, providing you with a camera just below it. The camera here at the bottom is adjustable. You can pivot it up and down. It kind of rotates in the assembly there. So you can go up, down, left, right. It's just like a ball and socket style. So you can aim it the way that you want. That best suits your needs, whether it's hooking up a fifth wheel or gooseneck, or just monitoring cargo at the back of your vehicle.
The coolest part about this camera system is that once you've got it installed in the back, that's the only thing you're going to see. The rest of the wiring is hidden in the vehicle, and it connects to the back side of our display unit, so that way our new camera works just like our factory camera. We're going to go ahead and put it in reverse, and you'll see our factory camera come on. We've currently got our camera set up for our fifth wheel here to make it easier when hooking up our fifth wheel. You can see here we've got our grid lines that helps center us inside of our camera. Now you do want to make sure that you've got your camera pointed the way you want it, as these lines are going to correspond with how the camera is pointed. Now what I really like about this camera system is how it enables me to do things myself. I don't have to rely on a spotter anymore when I'm backing up trying to hook up to my fifth wheel or gooseneck. I can just use my camera system here. And getting an extra angle when backing up can be really useful when you're trying to get into tight parking spots, or if you're backing into a garage, you need to maybe monitor not just what's behind you, but how close you're coming to maybe a garage door, because some of your trucks do sit up high enough to where you can't clear your garage at your house. This would be a great way if you just want to do some work on the back end, back it up, get it as close as possible without hitting. And you can't see it when you just turn around, but we can see it in our camera. This camera system is designed to work with your Ford's 8-inch display. If you have a different display, such as the 4.2-inch display, you'll want to refer to our fit guide for the appropriate kit for your vehicle.
We'll begin our installation by removing our third brake light assembly. So hop in the bed of your truck and remove the 2 screws on each side using a Phillips head screwdriver. Pull your assembly out and disconnect the electrical connector. You'll pull up on the release tab there and then pull the connector out. It's a little stiff. We'll then set our third brake light assembly down, and we'll start running our wiring up to this opening here at the back. I've got my wire routed now. We're routing the harness that has the female connector that your new camera would plug into, and at the other end of this harness you would have a yellow video cable wire as well as a power plug. So we want this end to come out here to plug into our camera. I'll show you how I got that routed up here now.
Our wire was routed down our headliner here at the back. To get it out to our third brake light assembly, you'll want to start here right in the middle, about where your dome light is, because that's about where that opening is. Use a trim panel tool to pull your headliner out. Go ahead and grab it, and then you can just reach your hand up in there and then push it through the opening. You can see our wire here. So we routed it all the way down our headliner until we got to our panel here. This panel you can just pull out just like that, and it pops it out, and that's just enough to poke your wire behind it. Once you get around your paneling here, you can pull your weather stripping down. This just simply pulls. And we're going to then route that wire up on top of our headliner going towards the front. You can see that wire here. We continued to keep running it forward, so when you get to your B-pillar here, just push it through the B-pillar, staying above the headliner. When you get to your front door, you have to pull down your weather stripping again. You can see the wire running. And we follow that all the way down. Continue going all the way down until you get to about here. At this point here at the bottom of your dash, you can actually, this panel here kind of pushes in just a little, so you can take your wiring and route it across up under the dash and above this panel. You can just push your wire in until you get it above that panel. Our wire is going to hang out there for now, as we have other harnesses and components that's going to connect to it. So let's head back to our tail light assembly at the back and get that fully mounted up, and then we'll come back up here and finish connecting all of our wiring up. We have our camera bezel here from our kit. This is going to get sandwiched between our light assembly and get reinstalled. Your camera wire here pokes up in the little opening there, and the other end of it here plugs into the wire that we routed. It's only going to fit one way. You'll see little arrows on it, so line those two arrows up and then plug it together. Now that we've got it plugged in, you're going to probably have quite a bit of excess wire here. So we can go ahead and use the twist tie that came in our kit that was holding that bundle of wire together. And we're just going to twist it around these to keep this nice and neat. And this is just going to stay stored behind our third brake light assembly. Our factory third brake light will have to have our bulbs removed. You may also need to remove the electrical connector here. There's a small tab that you'll want to pull up on to release this connector. If you're having difficulties getting it off, you can stick your screwdriver in there to pry it up and then pull it out. We can then take our lighting assembly, slide it over our bezel like that. We'll then take our lights and plug those back in, clip our connector back on, and now on the back side of our camera bezel, we'll take the gasket that comes in our kit, peel off the adhesive backing, and apply it to the back side of our camera bezel. Now that we've got our gasket installed, we can reinstall our light assembly. Go ahead and plug your electrical connector back in and push your light assembly back into place. Now, when we reinstall it, we're not going to be using the screws that we removed. Our kit does come with longer screws, so we're going to be using those. It's easier if you start each one by hand and then run them down. Be careful not to over tighten it, as it is plastic. We don't want to crack or damage the assembly. Now, if you also want, you could take silicone and you could apply it to the back, or butyl tape to further increase the seal. And that'd be okay to do between the light and the camera in the vehicle. It's just up to you on how much you want to apply to it. If you need silicone or butyl tape, you can pick those up here at eTrailer.com. Down here, you'll have your fuse panel cover. It just simply pulls off. There's a little slot to put your finger in. Just pull that out of the way. And that wire that we had ran before, we routed right over here to behind this panel. Now we're going to be routing it behind our glove box here. So let's go ahead and take our glove box out. You'll use a 7mm socket to remove 3 bolts across the bottom. Support your glove box, pull the release lever, and then you can just pull the whole assembly out and set it aside. Here we have the wiring that we routed from the camera to behind our glove box. This is going to plug into a small harness that comes in your kit, and we're going to run this small harness kind of towards our radio system. So let's go ahead and grab that. Your small harness is going to have a red and black wire on it on one side. On the other side, it will have your power as well as your video cable. And you can see there's another black wire going over here that I've routed to behind our radio, and that is just another yellow wire that looks just like this.
So take the harness we routed back and just plug it in to this end of your little short harness there. We're going to leave this wire here behind the glove box. This is our power and ground that we're going to be connecting, so we'll come back to that later. Now let's get behind our radio where we're going to make some more connections. To access behind our radio, we're going to open the compartment above our radio, and we're only doing this so we can grab the lip here of this panel. So grab that on each side or in the center, and we're going to be pulling away just like that until it pops. You don't want to pull it very hard, we're just trying to pop that top loose. Then we'll go down here towards the bottom, and we're going to pop out both of these panels on each side. So take your trim panel tool and slide it behind it and pop the assembly out. You may need to kind of work your tool around the edge in order to get it to release. Disconnect the electrical connector found on the other side by pressing in on the release tab and pulling it off. We'll then set that aside and repeat on the other side for this panel. It's going to be basically the same, but there are two electrical connectors on this side. And depending on the options you have in your vehicle, you may have more or less of these connectors, because these panels are going to probably be here on yours, but you may not have all of these options. Behind those panels, you'll find a screw. So there's one screw on each side. We'll use our 7mm socket to remove those. We can now reach in those slots and pull the bottom of our assembly out. It should now be loose. Now you're not going to be able to go all the way out, just back a little bit. Over on our driver's side here, your shifter lever, you want to kind of just work it around that, and then we can just let it kind of hang there. Now we'll need to disconnect every electrical connector located on the back of this panel. The amount of connectors are going to vary depending on the options you have on your vehicle. And now we can set this panel aside. We'll now remove our display. There's 4 screws that hold it in, 7mm socket once again. Then we can slip this out, and now we'll grab our third harness, which has our module, and that's going to be positioned back here behind our display. So we've got our new harness with our module here. So this is going to plug in line between our factory connector to our display. So that's this over here. So remove this. There's a small tab to press in on, and then the lever flips over to release it. Now, this doesn't need to be disconnected. I'm going to disconnect it here just so I can set the assembly down, because it is a little bit difficult to hold it up while making your connections here. So we'll take our new harness. We're going to plug the factory connector into one side of our new harness. Keep an eye on the slots here on the side. They're going to line up with slots on the connector. Push those together, and then make sure you bring the lever all the way back until it locks into place. These components here will just sit behind our assembly. So we're just going to get our connector that plugs back into our display, kind of separate it out off to this side so it can plug back in. Keep the rest of our module here and the rest of the wires over here. And we're actually not going to plug the display back in just yet, because it's going to be easier to make the rest of our connections if we do so now. So our second harness we had routed from our glove compartment up here. This is that video wire we talked about. That's going to plug into the female video wire coming off of our module. So just route that down through the little opening slot here and plug those two together. We also routed down in this little slot the switch that is connected to our module. We're going to be adding this to this panel that we had removed right over here, tucked up in this little nook here. That way it'll kind of be out of the way but easily accessible when we need it. This is what switches between our factory camera and our new camera that we installed. And lastly, up here on our module harness, we've got a
accessory voltage wire. This is the wire that will trigger the change when we connect our switch. So we're going to go ahead and wire these up. This wire here, we're going to need power from an accessory source. So let's go head over to the fuse panel located on our passenger side in the lower kick panel area. In order to get our accessory wire connected to power, we are going to have to extend it. You can purchase additional wire here at eTrailer.com. You'll also need some butt connectors to do that as well, which you can get here at eTrailer also. We crimped on our extension wire onto the wire labeled ACC, which goes to our switch here. So our switch is going down. This is the red wire coming from the switch. We connected our extension to it, and that was routed down back towards behind our glove box here, where we connected it to the other red wire from our other harness. The black wire from our harness, we crimped on a ring terminal to, and we just used a self-tapper to get it mounted into the metal panel here behind our glove box. This is for our ground. Ring terminals and self-tapping screws can be picked up here at eTrailer.com. Then from these two red wires here, we butt connected it to another small extension wire, which routes down to our fuse panel located in the lower kick panel area. And that routed down to a fuse tap that we installed into the slot numbered 44 on your fuse panel. So you'll remove the fuse that's in slot 44. You can purchase a fuse tap here from eTrailer.com. Now the fuses that we're removing from our fuse compartment there are low profile mini fuses. We're going to be using a regular mini fuse tap in its place because a low profile mini fuse tap won't seat all the way in due to the other connectors around the area, but a regular mini fuse tap will. That means that we also need to be using regular mini fuses, so the 10 amp low profile mini fuse you removed will have to be replaced with a regular mini fuse, and then we're going to need an additional regular mini fuse for our fuse tap that's going to power our circuit here. And that's just going to be another 10 amp fuse. Insert both of those 10 amp fuse into your fuse harness, and then insert your fuse tap harness into your slot on your fuse panel. And again, this is slot 44. The other end of this jumper wire that we ran from here just connects to the butt connector on your fuse tap. We can now put our display back in. So take the connector from our new harness and hook that up to your display. You may need to push the lever back on your new harness because it may come in the closed position. Now we'll slide it on and then lock it into place. Don't forget the other connector if you did remove that as well. So plug that in. We're now just about ready to put our display back in. We've got everything connected to it here. The only thing left is there's one wire coming off of our module. It's labeled ground here. You'll want to crimp a ring terminal on it. We're going to pass that wire down here so that way when we put our display back on, it'll come out the bottom. And then when you're putting your screws back in for your display, you'll want to take that ground wire and we want to attach it to one of those. So we're going to bring it up here and put it on this one at the top in the corner there. That way it's going to keep our wire up away from where we insert our CDs. Once you've got your display installed, you'll reinstall the rest of your components in reverse order of how we removed them. The only component we don't want to put back in yet is the little panel that we had to pop out on this side that revealed that screw, because we're going to be taking our switch here and mounting it in this panel. We've gone ahead and drilled out our hole for our switch. We use a 1/4-inch drill bit to drill it out. We'll then take our switch. We removed the nut, the lock washer, and the finish washer from it. You can place the finish washer back on it. I just took it off so I didn't lose it. Slide your switch through the back side of your cover. Then on the opposite side, we're going to place our lock washer on it. And this is only going to fit on one way. There's a small slot on it. so that way the on and off will always be in the correct orientation. And then you can tighten it down. You can use an adjustable wrench, or the best thing is probably going to be needle nose pliers because of how tight the confinements are here. Because it doesn't need to be really that tight. We just need it to be able to stay in place so we can switch it up and down without it moving around. We can then reinstall it into our dash here. It'll just poke into place and snap in. And now we'll test everything out. Go ahead and place your key in the ignition and turn it on. Make sure your switch is turned off. Keep your foot on the brake and place it into reverse. I've got the tailgate down, but you can see here's our factory camera with the tailgate down, looking at our receiver at the back. We're going to turn our switch up, and it switches over to the camera that we installed on our third brake light. You can now adjust that camera if you need to. The end of the camera can just be tilted and twisted to the correct position where you'd like it. That's best for you to suit your needs. And that completes our look at the third brake light backup camera system on our 2015 Ford F350 Super Duty.